What's up? You think how I'm gonna start this? There's a story in the Bible. Trying to think of where it's at. It gotta be in Genesis, I would think. The end of Genesis. And no, it's not in Genesis. No, it's not in Genesis. I'm not sure where. Maybe in Joshua. Where the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, and God splits the Jordan River, like during flood season, kind of like the Red Sea, but he split the Jordan River, and the Israelites walk through to the other side. Remember, the Israelites are God's children, and God tells them to go back and put 12 stones in the river, so that way that can be a remembrance to them of what God's done for them before. So the stories that I'm getting ready to get into is going to be just that. It's going to be stories of significant things that happened to me that God's done for me, and these are stones that help me remember what He's done for me. So, because I've said millions of times that no matter what would happen, when I would doubt and I would think, no way, this can't be real, or I'd be far away from God, it would always come back to this conversion. And this conversion was so real to me that that I can't write it off. Like everything else, somehow I can rationalize and justify and twist and turn to make it fit what I want. And so if I don't want to believe, I can find patterns and things to say, well, that's why I don't believe. But then I always get back to this conversion and what He did in my life in this time frame, in this time period. And I can't write it off. I can't explain it. There's nothing that can duplicate or replicate, or no way I can even, it's even hard to explain without you ever experiencing it yourself. But I'm going to try. And it's crazy, it gives me goosebumps when I think about it now. So, let's see, we left off with me going to jail 2 days before Christmas. Right, oh no, we left off where it was like after New Year's, and I tucked the Bible in my waistband, ran upstairs, didn't want no one to know I had it, opened it up, right, I'm rummaging through it. I don't know, I've never read a Bible, so I don't know, but I'm rummaging through it, and I go to the table of contents. That's what I always do my whole life. I go to the table of contents, read what the chapter titles are, and then I decide, well, do I want to read this or not? So I get to the table of contents, and I'm reading through all the books, and they're so foreign and weird, and then I get to a place, and mind you, I knew Matthew, Mark, Luke, I knew that those were the Gospels. So I did know that, but as far as the other Bible, and I knew about Revelations, obviously, I feel like probably everybody knows the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and Revelation. I mean, I didn't know the words in them, but I knew the names. But then I get to a book of James. So I was like, I don't know where to start. I was going to start in the Gospels. That made sense. But I was like, but let me just read James real quick and see what it says. So I'm going to read you. And the thing is this doesn't have much, that's what I'm saying, it doesn't have much fireworks, I don't feel like, for y'all. But when you're the one that it's happening to, it's insane to even look back at. So here's the, and remember, I read the whole Bible, but after these first 8 verses, well, even, really, it was the first 4 verses, and it caught my attention. This is what it says: my brothers and sisters, and remember my environment. I'm in jail for the first time, or not for the first time, but for the first time for that long of a period. That's crazy. Sorry, my wife texted me. So I was thinking about what she texted me. So I don't know if this is gonna grab your attention, but it caught my attention. So just remember, I'm in jail, and all the other stuff from before. My brothers and sisters, when you have many kinds of troubles, which I was in, you should be full of joy. What? Because you know that these troubles test your faith, and this will give you patience. Let your patience show itself perfectly in what you do. Then you will be perfect and complete, and will have everything that you need. So I read that. I was in jail, and I was anxious and wanted to just get out, remember? So I'd go do something. So once I read this verse, it caught my attention, like, whoa, calm down, be patient. And I don't even know how to explain why it did that and how I could interpret it. And remember, this Bible I'm reading in jail is the King James Bible, so it's the thous and the arts and the mineth and the sinneth and the kenneth and all that stuff. So I can't even read a King James version now and understand it. But somehow, for some reason, on that day, it read perfectly to me, and I understood it perfectly. And it was telling me to be patient. Then you'll be perfect and complete and have everything that you need. And in that moment, it was something was already changing. Because there's no reason for me, So let me finish, because it goes to verse 8, and then it says, so then, of course, my first thought was probably like, I can't understand this. I was thinking it now. I was probably thinking it then. I'm not going to understand this. So then I kept reading anyway. But if any of you needs wisdom, you should ask God for it. He is generous and enjoys giving to all people, so he will give you wisdom. But when you ask God, you must believe and not doubt. Anyone who doubts is like a wave in the sea, blown up and down by the wind. Such doubters are thinking two different things at the same time, and they cannot decide about anything they do. They should not think they will receive anything from the Lord. And those three verses are super important to me because I didn't have no wisdom. It was telling me all I had to do was ask God, which is what I did. And then it said, but you got to believe and not doubt. And so far, this had my attention, right? So I believed a little bit. But then I read the whole thing, right? And some of it's kind of foreign to me. But then I get the last chapter. I get to the last chapter. And I get to verse 19. And here's what verse 19 and 20 say. And the crazy part is, remember, like I told you, 520 was a big deal, a big number in my life. Right? And it always gets my attention. So when I get to verse 19, I look down and I see that it's chapter 5, verse 20. Like I had to go back even and look because the chapters are at the top of the page. And I was like, nah, that can't be right. And I go back, it's chapter 5, ends in verse 20, the book of James. And here's what the last two verses say. So this is when the last passage that said, you got to believe and not doubt, or you can't expect anything from the Lord. You'll be a double-minded man, unstable in all that you do. So like I said, I read the first 4 verses and it got my attention. I was like, that's kind of weird. And then I read the next 3 verses. It told me to ask God for wisdom, so I did that. And then And then the next thing I was worried about was my faith. I didn't want to be double-minded because it was saying I couldn't expect anything from the Lord. And then I read the rest of the book, and it didn't change nothing. And then I get to verse 19 and 20 and realize that the book of James ends on chapter 5, verse 20. And then that caught my attention. And that changed my double-mindedness to believing. And then things started to change significantly. But here's the last 2 verses in James chapter 5. My brothers and sisters, if one of you wanders away from the truth and someone helps that person come back, remember this. Anyone who brings a sinner back from the wrong way will save that sinner's soul from death and will cause many sins to be forgiven. And the funny part is, this is almost describes what my mission kind of is, and what I feel like my purpose kind of is. So it was almost like he was speaking right to me and telling me, you know what I mean? And I didn't fully understand verse 19 until this last year, after I struggled and then realized how much he loved me. And I understood now verse 19 makes complete, I understood verse 20 plain as day. And I thought, that got my attention, but it was really more about the James 5 chapter, verse 20. But verse 19 says, my brothers and sisters, if one of you wanders away, which is kind of what I did from the truth, and someone helps that person come back, remember this, anyone who brings a sinner back from the wrong way will save that sinner's soul from death and will cause many sins to be forgiven. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So then, anyway, so that changed everything. So then I went back, started reading in Matthew. I started in the Gospels and started reading towards James. And then in Matthew, so this is where the word was really speaking to me and already started to change me. So then, so first off, I get moved down to the cell. I was on the top deck, room 206. I got moved down to room 101. And I got moved into a room with this surfer guy. But the crazy part was the surfer guy read his Bible. And he was in there reading his Bible. So we would read the Bible together. And he would talk like, hey, dude, and stuff like that. But we would start to turn into Bible studies. And then, somewhere in Matthew, the first 7 chapters, somewhere it says, I learned how to pray. Because it says, this is how you should pray. It gives you the Lord's Prayer. So that was how I started my prayer life, was just doing that. And then eventually I started to add in my kids and stuff like that. But then that changed my life. And then when my mom would come visit me, I would be telling her all the stuff that God was doing, yada, yada, yada. And that's when you would hear the old saying, well, everybody in jail gets saved, right? But they didn't understand the encounter that I had. And I'm not even sure if you, as a watcher, can understand the encounter and the power of that encounter and the significance of that encounter for me. So anyway, so that started happening. So God starts working on my mom's heart now because he's working on my heart. And I'm talking to her. Right? And I'm in jail. I go to church for the first time. People just clowned around, so I never went back to church. Instead, me and my cellmate would just do Bible studies. And then one of my friends comes into jail, and we were going to switch cells. And I don't know why this is so significant to me, but I feel like it was life-changing. The speaker came on, and the guy said, you can move to room 208 or whatever room, or 108, whatever room it was. You've been given I put a request in and they granted my request. And in that moment, when I had to choose whether I wanted to go in a cell with one of my friends or stay in a room with the guy I was doing Bible studies with, and they even had to say my name a couple times to see if I heard them, and I had to say, no, I think I'm just gonna stay. But I'll never forget. For some reason, that moment was significant to me. I don't know and that's what I mean. So to me, it seems like God orchestrated this thing for this guy to be in my cell, to do Bible studies with me, to just have someone to talk to that was from the same mindset. And then when it was time for me, when my flesh wanted me to switch cells to go to something that was more comfortable and something that I always knew, like the same decisions I had to face in life. And instead, in that moment, I chose to stay with change. And for some reason, that was a significant event in my life and sticks out to me. And there's another event that happened where this guy that was was in there for child molestation. I'm not saying, I don't know if he was guilty, but he was in there for that, and all the people were talking smack to him. And I remember I joined in on it at one time. You know what I mean? Trying to fit in with the crowd, trying to fit in with the people. And I'll never forget going back to my cell that night, and that dude that I was bunkmates with said, man, because he didn't say nothing to dude. He said, you probably shouldn't have been doing that, man. That's not very Christ-like. And he said it in the most kind, most loving way, and said, what if he treated you like that? And I had to write, and I went and had to write a note to the dude, slip it under his cell to say sorry. Because that's how much conviction I got from just that dude saying that. Real easy. And he said it real nice to me. It didn't affect our relationship. He was still kind to me. He was still nice to me. Still did Bible studies. But he had a great point. And that event did something to me too. I'm already 16 minutes in, so I'm just going to end here. And we'll discuss my first year out of jail, which God orchestrated a lot of good things in my life then too. So, hope you stick with me. Probably won't be till next week though. All right, 1.